Hi there, I'm Richard Lewis and I'm a design director in the Sainsbury's Experience Design team.
So why is a UX portfolio so important to have?
It's important to have because it gives a view of the designer to a potential employer that is more relevant to designers, and it also helps to tell a story about what that designer has been up to in their career beyond the words that you might see on their CV.
Sure.
Also for the people reviewing the portfolio, it gives a really good indication of the style in terms of their design style for the candidate, and it also gives that candidate an opportunity to show their approach to design and how they might approach a project, and that's really valuable to businesses and companies reviewing portfolios.
Sure.
So it adds a richness to what you might see from the words of a CV, and it really helps that designer stand out. And obviously it's a very competitive market, and you might not even get an interview without a portfolio, so it's something that is really essential, particularly for any type of designer role.
And do you think it's important regardless of what level it is? Because obviously in the market some people think seniors don't necessarily need a portfolio.
I'd say yes. I think everyone's got a story to tell, wherever you started from in design and UX. At some point, if you've been in this industry, you're going to have some projects that you want to talk about. Whether you were the actual hands-on designer for that project is not the point you're trying to get across. It's more about how you might have worked as part of a team, how you might have motivated others as leading a team. But what's really important for me to see, and for us here, is how you collaborate with others. And at any level, we need to see that, and particularly the more senior you get, you're going to be spending a lot more time not just designing, but also interacting with stakeholders and working with others as part of a cross-functional team. And that's what we want to see in your portfolio.
Absolutely. And if you're hiring someone that's going to be a manager, more sort of hands-off, how would they get that across in their portfolio?
I think then they would be talking more about that interaction that they've had with the team, how they've gone about the hiring process, how they work with others, how they work with product, how they work with engineering, how they work with strategy, business stakeholders. A lot of the time in the sort of role that I do, I'm interacting between designers working on the products, but also those other stakeholders. And that's an important skill to have as a manager. That's something that we need to see if that's the role that you're looking to do, and that's the sort of experience that you've got. So clear evidence that you can understand the design process and work with designers and hire for those designers, but also that you can work with more at that strategy level to understand where the business is going alongside those other stakeholders.
Absolutely. And if you're hiring a junior, for example, who hasn't necessarily got a lot of commercial experience, what would you expect to see in a portfolio? What I tend to prefer is for them to show their personality. What do you find?
I'd agree with that. So clearly with juniors, you're not going to have so much commercial experience. You're not going to have those big company or agency type projects that mids to seniors would have. But yes, then it's about personality, and there's many ways to bring that through. So we love to see guys coming straight out of university talk about their university projects, or sort of personal projects they might have got into outside of university, but also there's the other hobbies that they might have, what that shows their personality. So sure. It's great to see photography, it's great to see Instagram accounts, it's great to see a more rounded type of personality coming through. And we'd love to have younger designers in our team, and we've brought in interns, and it's that youth and vibrancy that really helps to make a rounded design team. And absolutely you can see that from their personal style and their personal projects and their hobbies and the things that they're interested in.
Absolutely. And what's the best junior portfolio you've seen throughout your years as a hiring manager in UX?
I think it's somebody like that. There's been a few examples that somebody who has really shown their personality shine through, and it's shown that they are interested in all areas of design, but they're also interested in the beauty, the we can see through their photography style, through different types of products that they might be interested in, but also we've seen some nice examples of guys without a lot of experience just working on their own personal projects to show this is the sort of thing I'm interested in. I might not have a project to work on for that, but I've gone about it in my own way, and I've come up with an idea, and I've got all the way through to producing a prototype of an app. So a good combination of this is me, this is what I'm interested in, these are my passions around the things that I'm interested in through photography, whatever it be, but also this is the sort of product that I would love to work on, and I've actually gone out of my way to come up with a project to do that. There's been a few examples of that. That's great to see. That always gets us interested.
Nice. And if you're looking for more sort of a midweight to senior profile but hands-on, what do you tend to look for? So obviously process of the UX projects.
Yeah, then it's definitely more about showing that process, but across a breadth of products, and ideally breadth of industry. If people can show that they can stretch across different sectors, that's great to see, and if their process adapts to those different sectors, that's really good to see. And then we're looking for the evidence of what was the insight that you followed to move towards your design decision, and then how did you validate that design, and what was the evidence that showed that design was a success or not. So the whole sort of end-to-end, here's the insight, here's the design, and here's the data behind to back that up.
What shouldn't be in a UX portfolio? Is there such a thing as putting too much work in a portfolio? But how long do you look at portfolios for?
Yeah, I'd say there is too much, and quite often we see page after page of endless screenshots without any decent description of what the project's about. And I was always surprised to see this. I thought people would have understood now that this isn't the way to approach a portfolio. So endless screenshots of final design, high fidelity screens, but without what we were just talking about, the insight behind it, an example of the design artifacts that you created, and then the data to sort of say what the success factor was. And it's not really an acceptable way to present your work, and that we still see, and that's not going to get to an interview stage. So yeah, too many projects. I think people still think showing lots of projects is a good thing, but too many projects without description is
fully agree. And last question, how would you host your portfolio? So would you go on a website or would you use a PDF? Gets mixed reviews on each.
I'm okay with both. Because for me it's most about the accessibility of your work, and if you want to do that in a PDF that's fully accessible, we can get to, and we can see everything in there, that's fine. If you want to do that on a website, that's fine as well. I think it depends on the type of designer. Probably more for UX, you might lean towards a PDF. For motion designers, obviously you want to show some of your interaction and motion design skills. You probably want to do that through a website.
Sure.
But then it comes down to how busy you are in your job. Some people just might not have the time to create a website, and it's certainly not something that we would look down on if it's a website or PDF. But as I said, it always comes down to the same thing. Is it clearly laid out? Is it accessible? Can we get to it? Can we clearly see what you've done? And if you can make that clear to us through either of those formats, that's great with us.
Right, okay, so final question. Do you believe you can demonstrate soft skills in a UX portfolio?
I think so, yeah. I think with how you can talk about, I think you can do that by how you can talk about the different projects you might have worked on. So you might have been client side or agency side, but what we particularly here at Sainsbury's are looking for is how you can, not just your design skills, but how you can work with different stakeholders. You could be a designer within a Scrum team, so obviously going to work with product owners and developers there. But you're also likely to work with stakeholders across the business who might not have a strong understanding of what UX and design is. So if you can get across in your portfolio that you've worked in a big company or on a client side with a big client, agency side with a big client where you might interface with different stakeholders, that's really good for us to know. But if you are more of a designer who's comfortable in the agency environment sitting in the studio, that could be something that might not work so well for a big company design role.
And so if, for example, that is the case, where you've got a midweight UX designer who's not necessarily dealt with senior stakeholders, how could they possibly get their soft skills, for example, how could they show their soft skills in a portfolio? Because they might be really good at dealing with people, but not necessarily have the experience in a commercial sense to back that up.
Yeah, I think then it comes down to how they work in a team and how they work with cross-functional teams.
Yeah.
And whether you're client side or agency side, I think you can really get that across of really getting into the detail of how you worked on a project, on a product, with different stakeholders from different areas, as part of a cross-functional team. You weren't just working alongside designers, how you might have influenced a product owner, how you might have worked with an analytics colleague to influence wider stakeholders within the client or the business side of things.